Are you aware of this intervention as a result of prayer during the Civil War? The Confederate Army was unstoppable. Within weeks of winning the Civil War, President Lincoln proclaimed August 12, 1861, "It is fit to bow in humble submission to his chastisement, to confess and deplore their sins and transgressions, in the full conviction that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Therefore I, Abraham Lincoln, do appoint a day of humiliation, prayer, and fasting." Robert E. Lee had won the Second Battle of Bull Run and was marching 55,000 Confederate troops into Maryland, September of 1862. Then something happened. Union Private Barton Mitchell was drinking coffee and noticed 3 cigars on the ground wrapped in a piece of paper. It was a misplaced copy of Lee's Special Orders Number 191, addressed to Confederate General D.H. Hill, revealing Lee's battle plans. With this information, Union General George McClellan ambushed several Confederate brigades 70 miles from Washington, D.C. at the Battle of Antietam, September 17, 1862. Lincoln then proclaimed another day of fasting. Nations, like individuals, are subject to punishments and chastisements in this world. May we not justly fear that the awful calamity of a civil war may be but a punishment inflicted upon us for our presumptuous sins? Lincoln added, "We have forgotten God. We have forgotten the gracious hand which preserved us, and we have vainly imagined in the deceitfulness of our hearts that all these blessings were produced by some superior wisdom of our own. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. It behooves us then to humble ourselves before the offended power, to confess our national sins, and to pray for forgiveness." Lincoln ended, "I do set apart the 30th day of April, 1863, as a day of national humiliation, fasting, and prayer." 2 days after the day of fasting, another freak accident changed the course of the war. General Thomas Jackson was considered one of the greatest tactical commanders in history. Holding ground at the First Battle of Bull Run, standing there like a stone wall, he was nicknamed Stonewall Jackson. Often outnumbered 7-3, Jackson successfully fought the Shenandoah Valley Campaign, battles of McDowell, Front Royal, Winchester, Port Republic, 7 days battles, Second Battle of Bull Run, Antietam, and Fredericksburg. On May 2nd, 1863, after inflicting a crushing attack on the Union flank in the Battle of Chancellorsville, Confederate General Stonewall Jackson surveyed the battlefield and was returning to camp at twilight. Suddenly, one of his own men shouted, "Halt, who goes there?" But without waiting for a reply, a volley of shots were fired. 2 bullets hit General Jackson's left arm. 1 hit his right hand. Several men accompanying him were killed. In the confusion, they evacuated Jackson, but dropped him off the stretcher. His left arm had to be amputated. General Lee sent a message through Chaplain B.T. Lacey, "He has lost his left arm, but I my right. Tell him that I wrestled in prayer for him last night as I never prayed for myself." Growing weaker with pneumonia, Jackson said May 10th, 1863, "It is the Lord's day. My wish is fulfilled. I have always desired to die on Sunday." A few moments before he died, he said, "Let us cross over the river and rest under the shade of the trees." Civil War historians believe that had General Stonewall Jackson been alive and commanded 2 months later at the Battle of Gettysburg, the South may have won the battle and possibly the war. Jackson's death was difficult to reconcile, as he was exemplary in virtue. He was against slavery, freeing the slaves he inherited from his wife's estate. He violated a Virginia law which forbade teaching slaves to read by teaching a Sunday school class for both enslaved and free African Americans at Lexington Presbyterian Church. President Franklin D. Roosevelt stated September 17, 1937, "I came into the world 17 years after the close of the war between the states. Today, there are still many among us who can remember it. It serves us little to discuss again the rights and the wrongs of the long 4 years' war. We can but wish the war had never been. We can and do revere the memory of the brave men who fought on both sides. But we know today that it was best for the generations of Americans who have come after them that the conflict did not end in a division of our land into 2 nations. I like to think that it was the will of God that we remain one people." America has a history of crisis and prayer and God intervening. It's important for us to remember these stories of prayer and faith in American history.